First of all, tell me a little bit about yourself. Where were you born? And,
Sure.
And how long have you lived in the big city, as I call it?
Yeah. So I was born in southern Alberta. We'd been living in Standoff on the Blood Reserve, or Kainai. When I was 4, my birth father passed away.
Okay.
And so I ended up with my aunt and uncle. All of us, there were 6 of us in my first family, and we were all separated.
When I think about poverty in Calgary, I guess I kind of think that there's, I'm going to say, 3 levels. And I mean, there's the one that's just abject poverty.
Yes, they're staying in our shelters,
Right.
they're staying couch surfing.
Just no hope in the morning. And then you have people who are maybe working 3 jobs and trying to make, and then people who are working, but they're just there. Where do you think your family fell in that spectrum at the time?
So we were probably in the second one,
Right, yeah.
because even though my mom and dad didn't have steady employment, my older siblings would also contribute.
Okay.
And right now, my family, we're trying to get past the paycheck to paycheck
Yeah,
stage.
for sure.
So my parents experienced abuse in residential school. They came home, but couldn't do anything about it.
Can't break the cycle.
Yeah.
Can't break the cycle.
And so I didn't have it as bad as they did,
No.
but I didn't have it great.
No, I know.
And now my kids don't have it as bad as I did, but they don't have it great. When we moved here in 2010, it was kind of a tough time.
Right.
When after I finished university and all my education, I tried to work, and I kept doing contracts. I was a chiropractor, and you don't get much money
No.
when it's just contracts, and I
Right.
did that for a couple of years, like in little towns, Alberta.
Yeah.
And then I had my son in 2003, and I found childcare just incredibly difficult. And then I had another baby 2 years later and found it
Even more difficult.
worse. Yeah. My first serious relationship in my early 20s was
Right.
exactly the same pattern of addictions as my dad had been in.
How do you get through that experience or that day or that week? How do you draw on that experience?
Well, you remember that you are strong, and you remember you do have choices, and you sometimes have to make tough choices, and that not everybody's going to agree with you.
I wonder if we solve the simplest of things. Do we solve? You know, I think about people who are in poverty having to go to the Foothills Hospital, or take one of their kids to the
Well,
children's
that
hospital.
happened. I had to take my son. He broke his leg, and we took him to the clinic.
Right.
I think he was in grade 3.
Right.
And they said, no, you have to get him to a children's hospital immediately. And so him and I jumped on the 72. That's the bus that goes around the city. And we got there. And my brother...
And he's got a broken leg?
He has a broken leg. And my brother showed up and got mad at me and said, why didn't I call someone in the family to drive us?
Right.
But you realize when you're in poverty, you've already asked for favors. You
Over
can't
and over and
always
over.
ask for favors, right?
So sometimes, Pamela, I think we just need to set up a system where 20 of us, somebody can phone and say, George, I got to get my kid to the hospital.
Yeah.
Could you pick me up and drive me? I mean,
That would be
sort of a
great.
free Uber.
So if there's a way to build community and build neighbor to neighbors helping each other, that would be good. Like you're describing, like a social network that is safe, that trust I was telling you about.
Right.
Yeah. There is community building that could occur within your neighborhood. And a part of it is getting to know each other. I think that's really important.
You've overcome unbelievable things. What do you think drives you?
I saw addictions and what that did to people. So I'm very familiar with people who are homeless or people who live at the shelters. I go to the shelters to see family. First of all, I see people. I don't see the dirt or the...
No, of course not.
Right? Like,
Yeah.
I see the person.
Yeah.
And I talk to them and I find out, what do you need? And you wouldn't believe how many times I've bought a sandwich for somebody down at the C train. And I volunteer my time to try to help and help people learn about themselves, right? Because some of our people who do live on the street, they don't know who they are. They don't know about their culture, their ceremony. They don't know that you can smudge. Like, they don't know. And if we teach them, then maybe they'll do more.
But you do have an inner. You've overcome your
Well, I have a drive, right?
That's right.
I do. I want to help. That's
Yeah.
what I was telling you. I wanted to help as a child, so I went into health field thinking, well, if I could help people get healthy,
Yeah.
then it would help.
If you could say bibbity bobbity boo, I want to solve a problem in Calgary with amongst poverty, amongst the tougher socioeconomic in
Yeah.
Calgary, what would you pick?
I've always landed on housing.
Housing.
I think we need housing.
Okay.
So I'm not a fan of putting 1,000 people in one room. I just don't think the women feel safe.
Right.
And so they need their own four walls. They need their privacy.
Right.
When people are coming out of any type of institution, whether it's the shelters or the hospitals or the jails, if they had secure, safe housing, I think they'd have a better chance of getting secure, safe employment or education and then moving.
We've had this great conversation,
Yeah.
and I'm fascinated by your story
Thank
and
you.
your sense of determination. How do we tell other people's stories to Calgarians so that they understand what people are going through on a day-to-day basis, even in
Yeah.
this rich city we live in?
Yeah.
How would we do that?
Well, it's hard because I would tell people, well, you need to volunteer at the shelter. But then you go volunteer there and you're only in the kitchen all day. You don't really see anything or talk to anyone.
Right.
So I think you have to actually talk to people. And we talked about how you could meet them through your community, through community events, volunteering for the organizations I'm mentioning, Awaton, the Friendship Center. So actually going there and meeting people